Duh.
Oh, what's the point? I miss Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera. Hello, Sydney. I am your ghost face with the most space. K-Swope, everybody. We are reviewing Scream 7 today, ending the Scream franchise as we know it so far. Super excited for it. It's going to be a great, great time. But in the meantime, hey, we're going to be going through this. We're going to be reviewing it. We're going to have a section of good things, a section of bad things, and some notes at the end we want to talk about. So we're really excited for that. At the end, we will be giving this film a rating on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being similar in quality to stepping on a Lego brick. 10, of course, being Citizen Kane. Now, that all being said, let's dive right into the good stuff. All right, so the good things about this film. First things first, there's that scene you probably saw in the trailers and TV spots with the wall, okay, where Sydney and her daughter, Tatum, they're in the wall. Ghostface is stabbing through the wall. That was a pretty good scene. Very suspenseful. I enjoyed that sequence. It was very, very well done, I think. Such a small thing I'm starting us out on, but I got some more to go over too. Another scene that was fantastic is during this sequence, okay, what's going on is Ghostface is in their house chasing them, blah, 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 blah. They get him outside, okay? They get him into the streets, okay? And then an SUV strolls up and literally just hits him, just full speed, hits Ghostface. Pretty great. He's not getting up from that. Lo and behold, it is actually Gale Weathers and Chad and Mindy Meeks, right? 2 of the core 4. Yeah, so it was nice seeing them back. That scene, I think, was just pretty good for me as a fan. I'm like, oh yeah, bringing in some heavy hitters. So that was fun to see. Really, really good scene. I did quite enjoy that. Also, I enjoyed another character in this film, that of course being the character of Mark, okay? Mark is Sydney's husband, and I kind of like him by default because he's played by Joel McHale. In case you don't know who Joel McHale is, you have not watched the greatest show of all time, ladies and gentlemen. That, of course, being Community. He is Jeff Wanger, our main, I guess, protagonist, if you want to call him that. But great show. Highly recommend. He's on Animal Control right now. So if you watch that show, he's also, you know, the lead in that as well. But either way, Joel McHale, love seeing him in here. And the great thing is this also, I was almost certain going into the film, based on what we saw from the trailers and the TV spots, that his character was going to die. And he didn't. And that made me so happy because love Joel McHale. The dude is a legend. So excited for it. We need our Community movie, okay? We need 6 seasons in a movie, okay? I'm waiting for it. I'm excited for it, but now I'm getting off track. Another great thing I gotta say too, this is the first Scream film to have some type of credit/end credit scene, and this one is very comedic. So what's happening is the whole debacle happens, it's all over, and they're reporting it on the news, okay? In case you don't know this, what happens in this film is we go to find out that Chad and Mindy Meeks are now working for Gale Weathers. Mindy actually kind of sort of wants to take over Gale's job, which is interesting. So at the end of the movie, Gale finally is like, hey, Mindy, take the mic. And so she does it. Chad's running the camera, and so they're filming, and Mindy keeps screwing up her own like name and stuff, and it's so funny because she keeps saying that she's going to be better, the new, you know, Gale Weathers. She's old news, I'm the new hip thing, and then she just keeps screwing it. It's pretty funny. I quite enjoyed that end credit scene, so that was fun, really fun to see. So I recommend at least looking that up when you're done with this, unless you don't want like too much spoiled for you. But it was fun. I enjoyed it, and it's 2 of my favorite characters in the franchise, so I was glad to see that played out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the extent of the good things you have to say about Scream 7. Now, guys, this film frustrates me so much, okay? I was waiting. I always do the good first, so I put it on the front as best as I can. But, like, it's rough for many reasons. I don't even know where to begin with this. So, I think the first thing, and this is the first thing I have in my notes, is this film just didn't need to be made. It didn't need to happen. And what I mean by that is this. Every Scream film has something to say about horror movies and the horror as a genre, like right now, okay? And some themes we see in horror, okay? The first Scream was brilliant because it did that, and that's what made it so stand out compared to a lot of other horror films at the time. Plus, it was very well done. It had the whole whodunit thing on top of it, which was also really, really fun to see. Scream 2 comments on horror sequels and things of that nature, which was nice. Scream 3 attempted to talk about film trilogies and how that kind of changes things and stuff like that. Scream 4 was a requel before requels even existed, so that was very ahead of its time. Scream 5 was a requel in a world full of requels. Scream 6, I think, looking back on it, even though it didn't really reference itself as one of these things, I feel like Scream 6 felt a lot like it was the second in a trilogy. Specifically a requel trilogy. And what I mean by that is this. You watch any requel trilogy, and what happens is you have a first one that is very similar in a lot of ways to the first film in the series that it is basing its off of, right? And then the second one takes that franchise to new territory, things we have not seen, some new ideas and concepts get thrown in there. And then the third one We'll talk about that in a minute because this is the third one. I do have more to that thought. But either way, the sixth one was very much that one. It took us to New York. It brought some familiar themes and ideas, being the whole college setting, but they set it in a new location in New York City. And not like the iconic New York City, more like the more real life, down to earth. If you live in the city, you know what that kind of feels like type of ordeal. And I did quite like that. I thought it was really, really good. I love Scream 6. Scream 7, though, follows the trend in requel trilogies of the finale being not good. Pretty bad. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's start this film from the very beginning, a very good place to start. So every Scream film has a opening. The Scream openings are usually pretty much like a big deal, kind of iconic, because the opening for the first Scream was amazing, and then they kind of, kept that trend of big, not quite cold opens, because they do refer back to them. They are important in some way, shape, or form to the plot. But an opening where characters get completely wasted by Ghostface that are not super relevant to the plot, but are still important. Anyways, what happens is Stu Macher's house has now become, after the events of Scream and Scream 5, an Airbnb, which is kind of dumb, I think. Like murder house, and they have all the the stab stuff everywhere, trying to, I guess, capitalize on it, which in a dark, twisted way it makes sense, but also I'm thinking to myself, like, guys, literal people literally saw the end of their lives in this house. I mean, I don't think this is how you want to market that. So it's kind of in bad taste, but it is, satirical, and so I'm not really mad at that. But what I am not a fan of is it's so long and it's so boring, and all it really exists to do is plant into the viewer's mind that Stu Macher might still be alive, even though that's a theory that the fans have had for ever. And this film really answers that question, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, a little later on in the film, things are going, the plot's progressing, we're going to do some characters and stuff, and we see, it's actually really funny. So McKenna Grace is in this film. Everyone loves McKenna Grace right now. I don't know why. It's just, she's popping off right now. But McKenna Grace, what happens is she's a character, and she is actually the, I believe, third kill of this film. Fourth kill of this film, I just realized. But Tatum, that's Sydney's daughter, and McKenna Grace's character, they're in this play, and Ghostface shows up and wreaks some havoc. But in this play, okay, she's like a fairy or whatever who's singing, and they have these big, I don't know what you call them, rope pulley systems, pulling her up into the air and things like that, swinging her around. I'm thinking to myself, I've not done high school theater, but I have done local theater, and I've never seen a local theater in a small town, or a high school theater in a small town for that matter, that has a system like that. That's just way overkill. This needs to be more grounded in reality is what I'm trying to say. That was kind of ridiculous. But interesting kill at least. I mean, she was swinging back and forth, and Ghostface was swinging at her, and then eventually just, gut her like a fish. So I think that's probably the most brutal kill of this film, I would say. However, I will also say that the second most brutal kill of this film is also the most ridiculous and kind of stupid one, okay? So remember Patrick Schwarzenegger's brother from Gen V, right? He's in this film. He dies, they, stabby, and then they basically shove his head on one of those beer handles they have at the bars that you pull down and, the beer comes out. It goes down on that, and then it tilts back a little bit, and beer starts spewing from his mouth with blood, and I'm like, oh my goodness, why does this even exist? Who thought of this? So it's kind of dumb. It's pretty dumb actually, but I got to talk about it because it's just that dumb. Other notes, I will say this film just feels really slow to me. I feel like the first act is generally pretty, going and exciting. We're meeting new characters. This whole Ghostface thing happens. We get into a really tense confrontation that is actually quite lengthy, where I mentioned the wall stabbing scene happens toward the beginning of the film, and that was a decent surprise. But after that, it just loses so much momentum, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not invested anymore. I was really invested when it's okay, I don't know what's going on exactly, but whatever's going on is high pace, high octane, and I'm here for it. And then they get into the real mystery element of it, and during that part of the film, the pace just comes to a screeching halt, and I just start to get really bored, and then just kind of picks up out of nowhere, where I feel like there was no tension build or anything like that, and that's just kind of unsatisfactory to me. I'm going to circle back to something I said in the good area, though. I mentioned the Meeks twins. Love them, okay? They're half the core four. And the biggest shame of this film is that they don't really need to be there. They don't really do anything to progress the plot. They have the gratuitous scene of, oh, here's the rules. Here are the suspects. Get them all in the same room. But, that doesn't really change anything. And the rules that were even given are completely stupid. The rules given in Scream 6 are not great either, but these ones take the cake because all Mindy says is, all it is nostalgia. That's basically it. nostalgia, and there's like nothing else to go off of just at all. And I'm like, this is just ridiculous, and yeah, it's just not great. But speaking of characters too not being great, we do get to see, maybe I should put this in like the good part a little bit, but we do get to see Gale showing a little more remorse and sympathy after what happens with Dewey. You know, we kind of see that Gale and Sydney have definitely been through some stuff, and Gale's so much better at putting on a front and a face that she's all right when she really isn't. So it was nice to see that side of Gale. I will say that, you know, makes her a lot more sympathetic. Sydney, on the other hand, I feel like in the first Scream film, Sydney was very interesting. And I feel like she slowly began to lose interestingness, if that's even a word, as things progressed. And I feel as if making her the main protagonist again is boring. And I think she's kind of a boring character now, to be quite honest. I think that's the case because we've seen this played out so many times. The final girl, you know, growing up to be very overprotective, you know, having strapped with guns everywhere and things like that. We've seen that already. Halloween did that, I think, very well. I think they were on the cutting edge of that, and so that's become really worn down by now. Another thing I gotta say, too, the setting of this film, some, again, random small town, is also very dull, very boring. I just don't care about it. It doesn't excite me at all. So we'll talk about the killers in this film, and of course, talking about the killers, we got to address the elephant in the room, or in this case, the stew in the room, okay? Now, Matthew Lillard was back for this film. I was thinking to myself when I was seeing this cast, and a few other people who have been since dead and gone in the Scream franchise, characters, actors, have also returned. I remember seeing them casting as they were, you know, announcing, and I'm like, what on earth are they going to be doing with these guys? And so we go to find this out. That rumor of Stu still being alive is a big factor. They essentially send videos and things like that to Sydney of Stu, and they kind of have him digitally aged up and all, you know, starred up and things like that. So Matthew Lillard, I love Matthew Lillard, okay? So it's got nothing to do with him. I think hearing that he was cast, I was very interested in seeing all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the rumor, the theory is kind of stupid, and they just play too much into that this whole film, and I don't think anyone for a minute is convinced that Stu is actually back. I know I sure wasn't. At the end of the day, it all ends up being AI deepfakes, which is it's too timely, I think. I don't think that is going to make this film age well at all. So again, I love seeing Matthew Lillard back. I love seeing those quick cameos of other characters from Scream who have since passed. But at the end of the day, it wasn't worth it. I didn't like it. But now to the real killers. So the killers, there's 3 ghost faces again, okay? I had that in the notes. I'm throwing it in here now for context. But the first ghost face is the one that gets hit by the SUV that Gale and the Meeks twins are in. So that guy, you know, he bites it. And he's just a random dude. It's like they find out that he was in the coffee shop that Sydney owns earlier in the day, and they had, you know, a brief interaction about nothing too crazy. So they're like, what the heck? This is not usually these things play out, which is not a bad idea and premise, objectively. However, the way they handled it was just very boring, very milquetoast, very like, what are we doing here? And that's sort of what made it come to a screeching halt, because once that was all done, it was just, whatever. But the 2 other killers, okay, are this doctor dude at a insane asylum and Anna Camp, okay? Now, I will say, Anna Camp was one of my 2 speculated ghost faces going into this film, because as an active Scream fan, whenever I watch a new Scream film, I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching it, who could Ghostface be? And the 2 people that I pinged were Anna Camp and her son, who I mentioned is that guy from Gen V, okay? Now, it was not the guy from Gen V because he died, okay? But it was Anna Camp, who was actually his mom, okay? And this is where things get really ridiculous and really stupid as far as killer motives go. So, in a very similar fashion to the first Scream, there's one killer with all the motive and another killer with no motive. And so the one with no motive was the guy from the insane asylum. He was like in one scene earlier in the film. It was a pretty lengthy scene, so not like it was like super short or anything like that, but we remembered him when he was unmasked, we'll put it like that. But his reasoning, I don't get it. It's just that he met Anna Camp's character in the asylum, and they just kind of hit it off, I guess. So I really don't know what that's all about. But Anna Camp, her story was this. She was in an abusive relationship, had an abusive husband. After reading Sydney's book, which she released, which she was touring for in Scream 4, she decides, hey, you know what? I'm like Sydney, and my ghost face is my husband. And she, you know, did stabby things, you know, something that rhymes with Curter, okay? You know what I'm saying? So the husband bites the dust. And then for some reason, I don't really understand her logic at all here, but she decides, hey, since I did that and I followed Sydney, that means I have to go stabby to Sydney for some reason. I don't get it. It's stupid. She gives a reason and explanation. It made no sense, and I forgot it because it made no sense, and it was just really really dumb. Now, I figured it could have been Anna Camp because we know that her son was really big into true crime and stuff, and that's always something that makes you really sus in these films. I also figured, since this was a big mother-daughter type of story, that having a mother-son be the ghost faces would be an interesting match and would kind of, go against face-to-face. It would make a whole lot of sense to me. But they didn't do that. But anyways, I've rambled. This film was incredibly disappointing. I'm gonna go into my rating. Before I do, if you want to see my reviews of all the other Scream films, hey, make sure to check out the playlist. It should be right up here. Yeah, right up here. Check out the playlist. Great stuff. I've reviewed every Scream film officially now, this being the last one I have to do. So go check those out. And if you like to see other stuff, I do some horror stuff. I do some commentary, some South Park, some superheroes, all those kind of franchises and geeky things that I'm into. Hey, subscribe button might be for you. But hey, let me know what you thought of Scream 7 in the comments. Appreciate to hear from you guys down there as well. If you guys had any different opinions, please let me know, because I was not a fan of this film. So much not a fan of this film, to be quite honest. It's the worst of the franchise. I can say that safely now. It was either that or Scream 3, and I was thinking to myself, and I'm like, Scream 3 has a lot more redeeming qualities, even though I didn't like it that much, than this one has. And so it pains me to say that Scream 7 is this bad, this mediocre, but unfortunately, rating-wise, I'm going to have to give Scream 7 a 2 out of 10, which hurts. It really does hurt. But those are my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. I, of course, am K Swope. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget, although this movie might be scary, Jesus still loves you, and I will see you in the next one.